Good afternoon. This is the final session of our financial empowerment webinar series. This is insurances that small businesses should be familiar with. My name is Michaela Nyberg, and I'm the Small Business Services Coordinator at ANCA. And I'm joined by Lauren Richard, who is the Small Business Program Director at ANCA. She's going to provide a little introduction to ANCA and then introduce our panelists. And she will also be facilitating today's panel.
Thanks, Michaela. So ANCA stands for the Adirondack North Country Association. We're a nonprofit, non-governmental economic development org established in 1955. So we're 71 years old now. We're 23 staff based in Saranac Lake, New York. And a lot of folks who work here also are remote and live across the region. We serve the 14 northernmost counties of New York State. These counties that are shown on the screen here. We envision a new economy that works for all. We want to build prosperity across northern New York, and we want to create and sustain wealth and value in local communities. Our work is funded in many ways, including state, federal, and local grants, philanthropic dollars, event fees, donations, and memberships to keep us working for you. Your participation and support here are greatly appreciated. You can learn more at adirondack.org under support. We have more upcoming events and programs pretty much all the time. Our most imminent one now is Adirondack Buyer Days, which is later this month in a couple of weeks. It's our annual wholesale trade show for micro and small maker businesses and retailers. We have preparatory webinars. At this point, they've passed, but they are recorded. So if that's something you're interested in, we have those. One is about intro to wholesale, and one is about building a better booth. You can also keep an eye on our events page for more. We have our upcoming Clean Energy Conference and a bunch of other things in store all the time. So adirondack.org/events for more about that. Michaela and my contact information are here. If you need more small business support, we offer one-on-ones, and we can help you navigate other services in the region as well and point you in the right direction if it's not us in-house who can help you with whatever you need. And that's also on our website under our work. So reach out to us anytime and we'll be happy to talk with you. All right, let me get this open again. Here it is. All right, so next I'm going to introduce our panelists for today. Thanks for being here again with us. They're both repeat offenders. We really appreciate them coming back for another round with us. We have Christopher Pero-Dresser, who's an agent with New York Life. He got into this career to educate people on their finances and to not just sign them up for a plan, but to be with them every step of the way. As he's gotten going, he's realized that small business owners in the area seem to be very underserved. His goal is to change that through education and working together to build successful businesses throughout the region. Thanks for joining us again, Chris.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We also have Kim Mannion, who works here at ANCA with us. With degrees in finance and human resources, Kim has worked in various corporate positions and lived in many places, including Egypt. Since her return to the region, Kim has pursued her passion for small businesses and small business development. She owned and operated Maui North Ski, Bike, and Board Co. in Plattsburgh and worked at the Small Business Development Center. Working with small business owners so they can not only survive but thrive is at the heart of Kim's work passion. Thanks for being here again, Kim.
My pleasure.
All right, so we'll dive right into the question prompts. You'll each have a chance to answer each one of them. So firstly, for many small businesses, the owner is the key driver of income for both the business and their household. How should owners think about protecting themselves financially if something unexpected happens? Chris, do you want to go first for that one?
Yeah, I think the small business owners, a lot of times the business is kind of family ran. So the whole family is involved in the business. But if something were to throw that off, usually when I'm talking to someone that's injury, illness, or death, all of a sudden we don't have that income coming in. So we kind of have to separate the business from the household and say, what do we need financially to keep the household running? Um, or what do we need to keep the business running? If that's something that we want to look at, we're going to pass on to our kids, or the family's going to continue to run, does losing income for 6 months due to an injury or illness, or if one of the family members were to pass away, how can we make sure that that business will continue to run, but also that the household is to continue to run?
Great, thank you. Kim, do you want to answer that one?
Sure. And I know that we're here to talk about insurance, and we'll get into that more. But in order, like if you have economic hardship, having a rainy day fund is obviously important. I know that's really, really hard to do as a small business owner when your cash flow is often strapped. So if it's possible to have like access to a home equity line of credit or just some sort of cash flow that you can tap into should something arise. A lack of cash flow is the number one reason why businesses fail. So having access to a little bit of money is huge.
Thanks, Kim. And that reminds me, we have previously in this series, we had a 101 personal finance session, which includes the emergency fund as part of that. And we also have a future planning for your business session. So if you're curious to delve further into either of those things, check it out. Next up, what makes risk planning different for business owners compared to someone who works a traditional job, like for someone else? Kim, do you want to take that one first?
Sure. Yeah. With a small business, those safety nets, be it like a company covered short-term disability, sick leave benefits, very often owners don't have access to those types of benefits. So if they aren't working, they aren't earning. And depending upon the size of the business, if the business is small enough and the business owner is the primary worker, or if there's a small workforce, if an owner is kind of taken out for whatever reason, illness or injury, the business really suffers. And so it's even more important to have those coverages and other safety nets in place.
Right, thank you. Chris.
Yeah, I think with the traditional job, a lot of the time, benefits are offered through the employer. So maybe that short or long-term disability would be offered through them, but also that business is more than likely going to continue to go on if an employee is missing some portion of time, right? But that's as a small business owner, a lot of the times the small business owner is running the day-to-day operations in whatever type of business they're in. So if they were to miss some time, they have to go out and find something to protect themselves to cover that income that's still coming in. So I think it just the business owner has to put in those, I like the word safety net that Kim used, having those safeguards in place for if something were to happen. Because again, as a small business owner, the goal is to make money here. So if the money's not coming in, then the household's going to suffer.
All right. And related to that, many entrepreneurs insure their equipment or property, but not necessarily themselves. Why is it so important for business owners to think about protecting their ability to earn income? Kim, do you want to take that one first?
Yeah, just kind of, we're going to say the same thing over a little bit. And that if they're the primary, like, it kind of depends. The types of coverages that you need kind of depend on the type of business that you have. Like for me, I had a retail business and I may have been one of the key subject matter experts with regards to my business. I wasn't like a cabinet maker where it was my sole expertise or craftsmanship that produced the products.
Mm-hmm.
So if something happened to me, I did have staff that I could lean on. But there are solopreneurs or micro businesses where the business owner, it's their hands that do the bulk of the work, or it's their expertise. And for those folks, it's even more imperative that they have those insurance coverages. So a small business owner really needs to look at a whole host of things, right? Like for me, I haven't mentioned, but I was lucky enough in that my spouse had a full-time corporate job and our basic living expenses could be covered by his income, we wouldn't have the discretionary money. But very often the primary breadwinner is the small business owner. And again, it's just each scenario and each family's situation needs to be looked at to make decisions around the types of coverages and the types of safety nets that you need.
Thank you. Chris.
Yeah, I think I think Kim's right. Every small business is different, right? Like if we're talking about an excavating company, are we the one as a small business owner, the one that's out there running the excavator? Like you had mentioned that we insure their equipment and property, but we need to insure the people that are running the equipment. Okay. So like one thing I would say is that is what happens a lot of times is people make sure that their equipment's covered, but they're not making sure that they're covered. Um, it's a broad question where each situation is so different based off of, is the business owner the only employee working there, or do you have a staff of 20 people? So it's really customizable to the small business and to the business owner in general, but it is so important to make sure that you are covered as a small business owner, not so for the business as well, but also yourself if something were to happen to you. And like Kim said, a lot of small business owners are the breadwinner of the house. That's what we set it up for. A lot of times the spouse and even the children are also working the small business. So everything's been put into that basket. If something were to happen to the business owner himself or herself, would they be able to continue to make money?
Thank you. And kind of segueing off of that, how can life insurance play a role in protecting both a family and the future of the business? Chris, I'll let you take that one.
So basically it would, if the business owner were to pass away, it would pay out to the family to keep pay the mortgage, get the kids through college, get the kids through elementary, high school, whatever stage of life they're in. But I think one thing that we don't look at is the future of the business. What's the plan as we get towards retirement and are we passing that on to kids? Are we selling that? Um, it's a story. My dad is retired and a consultant for construction companies, and before COVID, he was a consultant for this water treatment company. And the CEO of that company and CEO business owner passed away during COVID and had a really good sized life insurance policy on him that actually paid out to the company. So they were able to stay in business during the shutdown of COVID, the change of leadership, all of that because of that life insurance policy, keeping the business up and running. So everything can be structured in different ways. Again, it's customizable to what your plan is as a business owner, but it's important to have those conversations even at a young age, so that there's a plan in place to transition the business. And again, those plans can change. We always say it's planning, not a plan. Right now we can say, oh, I'd like to retire at 55 or 60, whatever the age is. And then as you work a little bit longer, you're like, I'd like to stay in another 5 years or whatever the case may be. But it's important to have those conversations early on and have an idea of what the goal is of the business.
Thank you. Kim, do you have anything you want to add to that?
What I would just add is life insurance is really inexpensive if you get it early on. The older you are, the more expensive life insurance becomes. And so as a business owner, you'll be able to part with, just think about it early on. And I know that as a young person, the last thing you really want to think about is life insurance. But if something were to happen, and I think we all probably know folks that it was on the to-do list, and it stayed on the to-do list, and then something tragic happens and the family's left in a really tough spot, kind of regardless of what their financial situation is, but even more so with a small business owner. So yeah, it's not glamorous, but super important.
Great, thank you. And not to belabor the point, but if a business owner suddenly couldn't work for several months, what are some of the financial ripple effects that could show up in both the household and the business? And Kim, I'll send that one to you first.
Yeah, we've said kind of like there are expenses that continue that are, mortgage, rent, those kinds of things, and they don't get paid, and a family ends up in a really tough spot. Or health insurance, like health insurance premiums. So yeah, it's kind of the having that a rainy day fund. I can't remember what the ideal amount of cash is, but to have 2 or 3 months worth of cash in the bank. And again, I totally appreciate that as a small business owner, tucking that money aside is really, really hard, and it often gets tapped into for other reasons. But as we said, kind of having access to a line of credit of some sort is super important.
Yeah, thank you. And a rainy day fund or emergency fund ideally should be 3 to 6 months worth of your living expenses, your baseline living expenses, but anything is better than nothing.
Agreed.
Yeah. Chris, I'll pass that one over to you.
Yeah, I think the basic thing here is that the bills don't stop coming in. So we have to make sure that that's protected. The rainy day fund or whatever the case may be, 3 to 6 months is what we recommend as well. But also looking into different ways to put that away that's, accessible, but not necessarily in just a normal savings account that's making no money. So one thing that we have access to is a high yield savings account. So you're not getting your traditional I don't 0.001% at the local bank where we're kind of making a little bit of money having that rainy day fund, but also looking into long and short term disability insurance. Again, the business owner is a lot of times is going to be the breadwinner in the house. We have to make sure that the mortgage is being paid, the lights are staying on, um, utilities, all those bills are being paid so that the cars don't get taken away because we got sick or got hurt or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, thank you. What kinds of conversations should business owners be having with spouses, partners, or family members about financial protection and contingency planning ahead of time? Chris, you want to go first with that one?
Sure, I think that spouses should be involved in every conversation when it comes to finances because it's at the end of the day, it's a business owner is part of a household. I think as far as, from a life insurance perspective, the spouses should understand who to contact and how to contact them if something were to happen. But also there's a lot of decisions to be made. At the end of the day, these things unfortunately aren't free. So there is a financial commitment that has to be made, and it's easier, I think, at the beginning if both spouses are on board with a plan than being brought in midway through setting something up. Also, it directly affects them. Every financial decision for the business owner is going to affect the spouse, the children, all of that, and I think it's just important to sit down with your spouse and or older children, if there is a transitional plan in place, and really go over that and let everyone understand what the plan is in place. I like sitting down with the spouse and the business owner myself, and that way there's a discussion. Obviously most time they're going to go talk about that by themselves afterwards, but I think there's a big key to that is just making sure that everyone is on board with what's going on.
Yes, thank you. Kim, anything to add there?
No, just I think Chris really hit the nail on the head on a number of factors, but getting the family together and making informed choices about it's kind of a matter of your risk tolerance, right? Like we talk about risk tolerance with investing, but it's also a matter of risk tolerance with regards to protections. Like, are we willing to take the risk of not having short-term disability or health insurance or long-term disability or life insurance? Because they are choices that you make and you live with the outcome, and you hope that you never have. Insurance is one of those things you hope you never have to use, but if you do have to use it, again, having made an informed choice with everyone involved, I think just makes it easier if something does happen, in terms of like this is a choice that we made together, and now we have to live with the consequences.
Yeah, great point. Thank you. All right, next up is how can planning ahead for these what if scenarios reduce stress for business owners and their families? Kim.
Yeah, I mean, I think we just kind of talked through that. I'm not sure I have a lot to add. If it hits the fan, it's going to be stressful regardless of whether or not you have insurance. But having insurance certainly makes it far less stressful. But if making those insurance premium payments causes a lot of stress on an everyday, every month basis, again, that's the being conscious and making deliberate choices around those issues.
Thank you. Chris.
I think it's important to have those tough discussions. Like, like Kim just said, it's insurance is something that we hope we never use, but we're thankful that it's there if we do have to use it. And I think business owners, especially when we're first starting out, there's a lot of stress, right? Like we're kind of putting all our eggs in one basket and working hard and hoping that this business succeeds. And I think just knowing that if something were to happen to us physically or health wise, or one of us were to pass away, that the spouse and the family would be taken care of. It is something that we can take the stress off. But again, like how Kim said, like we are going to have to, some people are going to have to make decisions. Maybe we can't afford everything. And that's where we would come in and say, okay, what are your priorities? What's the priorities for the business owner? You could always add on later on, but just making sure that the priorities for you are covered.
Yeah, thank you. And related to that, for someone who has never really thought about these protections before, what are some first steps they could take to start evaluating their situation, just like you were just saying? Anything to add to that?
I think just for me, it's talking with your spouse and just having that conversation that we had mentioned, and then sitting down with somebody and just understanding what the options are, and then going from there in terms of prioritizing what's important to you. Now, maybe you can do everything. I don't, everyone's situation is different, but I think the setting goals and priorities is a huge thing.
Great, thank you. Kim, anything to add to that?
I think we're good.
All right, thank you. Okay, so now we're going to go to warning signs. What are a few warning signs that a business owner might have gaps in their personal financial protection? Kim, do you want to take that one?
I'm sorry, what are the warning signs of what?
That a business owner might have gaps in their personal financial protections.
Yeah, I guess that's a great question. If I guess sitting down with somebody like Chris and discussing the different insurance coverages that are there, because the problem is I don't know that there are warning signs. Usually it's something catastrophic that happens, and then you realize you don't have the insurance coverages that you need. And so I think being proactive and not waiting for warning signs is the best approach. And again, the idea of being really informed and making conscious choices versus, wow, I should have, or I could have, and then ending up in a really bad spot.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. Chris, anything to add?
Yeah, not really. I think I don't know that there are warning signs. I think it's so important to sit down with somebody and kind of go over what your options are. And that's from a personal insurance, for the business owner, but also an umbrella insurance or somebody who's going to cover the business from a liability standpoint. Unfortunately, and I see a lot, is we're the ones that are reaching out to the business owners to try to tell them what we do, and not so much the other way around. I think a lot of business owners are so, to no fault of themselves, their business is their life. Like that's what becomes, their way of life, is they're hardworking, and they sometimes forget that we have to protect ourselves in case of something really bad happening. And a lot of times it comes up when they hear of, you know, maybe another small business owner passing away, or another small business owner being out of work due to injury or illness for a long time, or something happens in their building, pipes break, or they need a new roof or something, and they realize, I wasn't protected for that. And again, at that point, it's almost too late, and that can be catastrophic to the business.
Yeah, definitely.
And
Thank you.
I'm just going to jump in
Oh
here
yeah,
too.
go ahead.
Like, and don't be afraid to just learn. And I have a feeling that sometimes people, be it small business owner or otherwise, feel like they will be pressured into getting coverage they don't need. So I think it's really important to find somebody like Chris, or somebody that that you trust, that will really help you make an informed decision that balances your current cash flow with the risk of having or not having the different types of coverages. And there's so many different options out there. Uh, Again, just sit down with somebody that's really knowledgeable and can help you make informed decisions about the kinds of coverages you need.
I love that word, education. I think that, like, for some reason, somewhere along the line, I know that we're talking about business insurance, but it's really finance in general, that we just aren't educated on it. And it's so important that this is, to me, protection of the small business owner should be done, at least talked about, when you're setting up your small business, to at least understand the different protections and what they're going to cover. And I do know that people have that, I'm going to be pressured into buying 12 different insurances that I probably don't need 8 of them, or whatever the case may be. I highly recommend sitting down with multiple people. Feeling comfortable with the person that you want to do business with is important for the business owner. At the end of the day, it's a trust thing. It's a trust of, if I do have a claim, I'm going to call my person, and they're going to take care of this for me and get me the money as quickly as possible, or help me out with this situation. So education is, to me, education's the key here. I always say I don't know how to fix a car, so when I need my brakes done, I bring it to someone who's a lot more educated on fixing cars than I am. So I just think we all have a job, and we hope to do it well, but I think that shopping around a little bit and getting comfortable with the relationship with the person that you're going to work with is extremely important.
Agreed. Thank you. So just like you were just saying, many entrepreneurs pour everything into their business. How can owners balance investing in their business while still protecting their personal financial stability? And we've touched on this a little bit throughout, but is there anything you want to add to that, Chris?
I think just sitting down with somebody, like we've been talking about, I think it's important. Most business owners that I sit down with are going to be a little bit more on the conservative side, as far as having that built up emergency fund. Like that's something that is top of mind for them, because they know that they need to access, or could potentially need to access cash quickly. So
Mhm.
if you're working for someone, a lot of times people are okay putting more money in investments, where business owners are like, that $20,000 project or whatever popped up last year unexpectedly. I know that I need to have some sort of money in case that was to happen again. But I just think, like, at the end of the day, it's just sitting down and having conversations. And if we're good at our job, we can usually get you to talk about things that you didn't even know existed, from goals, and also, what's important to you and your family. Again, a lot of times I like to bring the spouse in, just because it just, maybe it's a conversation. People are nervous to talk about finances a lot of time, and it's a conversation that really does need to be talked about. So I just think sitting down with someone and having that conversation.
Thank you. Kim, do you want to add anything there?
I don't think I have anything to add. Thanks.
thanks. All right, next question is, what is one small habit or annual practice business owners can adopt to stay on top of their financial protections as their business evolves? So this is kind of the as things change question. How do we make sure that our coverage is matched to our lives as our lives change? Chris, do you want to take that one?
Same thing, sitting down annually with whoever your accounts are through. That's something that I take a lot of pride in is not just selling a policy, for someone and never talking to them again. It's I want to meet with them at least every year. I once a year, probably more often if possible,
Mhm.
because life does change for small business owners and for everybody, right? Like hopefully that business is growing. Family changes, every life
Mhm.
changes, and I think it is important to understand that it's customizable and adaptable. Like we're going to adapt with the business, and but it takes that meeting once a year to sit down and say, like, where's your business, how much has your business grown from this time last year, and just having those conversations.
Okay, so about once or twice a year sounds like a good interval to do that at. I think that would be
Yep.
helpful for people. Kim, anything to add there?
Yeah, no, just emphasizing the importance of touching base once a year at a minimum. And it might only be a 15-minute conversation, but your carrier or broker will ask you questions and just help you determine if you need to make any changes.
Great, thank you. And that's all of our kind of specific questions for the panel for this series. Or this session, sorry. We also have one kind of end of series question since this is the last session in our Financial Empowerment for Entrepreneurs series. And since both of you have been at now two, I think at least, of these sessions, and I can chime in on this one as well, for entrepreneurs who have joined us throughout this financial empowerment series, what's one mindset or practice you hope they carry forward as they continue building their business? And something that I've kind of noticed as we go through this whole series, having been at all of the different sessions, is at every different session, I think the sort of one of the takeaway points is small changes matter. And I think when we think about finances, sometimes we look at people who are famous and have lots and lots and lots of money, and we think, wow, they must have really hit it big, and that's the only way I'm ever going to make it. And that's just not true based on what I've learned from this series and just in life in general. Like, it's about the small changes and it's about consistency and making it easy for yourself. That's what I've learned. Kim or Chris, or even Mahela too, do you want to share anything that you've heard or that you've learned in your life to do with that?
I'll jump in. It's Kim. I think I can't remember which one I mentioned this, but like life, small business ownership, whatever, is kind of overwhelming. And it's often hard to be deliberate about things because you're overwhelmed. So if you, like I say I do with kind of chores and that kind of thing, Monday is my X day, and Tuesday I work on my office, and Wednesday I do whatever. If you say January is my month to do insurance coverages, and February is my month to whatever that looks like, kind of have a plan where it breaks it down and has it in little bite-sized pieces so it doesn't feel quite so overwhelming.
I love that. Thank you. Chris, want to add anything there?
Yeah, I think like building a team that works for you. Most small business owners are probably going to have a CPA or something like that. If you have someone who does the insurance and your investments, and then potentially, a lawyer or whatever you have, setting up meetings with your entire team once a year is like, I love working with CPAs. A lot of times we can find ta tax advantages for the small business owner when we start working with different members of their team. I think that that's extremely important to sit down and really understand where the business has been and where it's going. Also, talking about to that team about what your goals are. I think goals are extremely valuable, but also making sure that you're taking time to remember that the goal of most businesses is to make money. And I think starting a lot of people think that they quote unquote don't make enough to sit down with somebody and really start a plan. It's just not true. We don't have to be a multimillionaire to sit down with someone and come up with a plan. The earlier you can start all of this planning, the better. Like Kim mentioned before, from a life insurance perspective, it is going to be cheaper when you're younger. Compound interest is going to take into a bigger effect as you start younger. We you don't need thousands upon thousands of dollars to start early. We understand that as a small business owner in the first few years, it's, you know, a lot of money is going to be poured into the business itself, but paying yourself and starting something, you're going to see huge benefits of that down the road.
Great, thank you. And I've got just a couple of questions for our Q&A session. The first one is, are there certain life stages when business owners should revisit their insurance coverage? And I know we said generally like once or twice a year, but if someone is not doing that, are there certain, milestones or something like that that they should really be making sure they're checking in and updating things?
So we usually talk about young families. So like, you know, you just had a couple children or whatever the case may be. Then we talk about retirement, but a lot of the times it's going to be with those life changes as opposed to like life cycles. It's going to be, you know, okay, we have kids, we have our first mortgage, we're just opened this business, then down the road, you know, the kids are getting a little bit older. Now we're looking at college. Now the kids have moved out, that kind of thing. Um, it uh, Ideally it is it's an annual or semi-annual type meeting, but you know, life does get busy and people push that off. And I think it's important as much as possible to sit down, but it's also, you know, what life changes are happening within your plan. And that's where it's kind of it's important to sit down with somebody.
Great, thank you. Kim, anything to add there?
No, I think that was awesome.
All right, and one more. What information should someone gather before talking with an insurance professional so that conversation is productive? I think this could be really helpful for people. And Chris, I'll let you take that one first as well.
Yeah, so we are always going to we want to cover for the business owner or person, the mortgage, the debt, and then understanding how much income needs to come into the house. Um, from a life insurance perspective, how much money needs to come into the house for how long to cover that income that we need to replace. From a disability type insurance, we're going to look at just the bills. So take vacations out of that. How much money do you need on a monthly basis to cover the mortgage, the utility bills, any bills that you need to have the house up and running um, per month? That's what we look at from a disability insurance side of things. So really it's just what are you paying each month? And then from a business side of things, you know, what costs are going into the business? And if you were looking at a life insurance policy to cover the business itself, um, you know, how much money do we need to keep that business up and running? A lot of small business owners do have a plan to keep that business within the family. Obviously, that doesn't always happen because maybe kids grow older and they decide they don't want to run that business. They want to do their own thing. But if that's your plan to at least offer it to your kids, we want to make sure that business is continuing to run. So just basically debt for the household and how much income do we need to cover? Disability insurance is how much are the bills each month gonna to keep the household running? And then for the business is how do we keep that business running financially?
Thank you. Kim, anything to add to that one?
No, again, another great job.
And Kim, I wanted to give you a chance too, since a lot of this has been kind of more specific to Chris's profession, since you have run a small business and worked with a lot of different small businesses as well. I wanted to just give you a chance to say if there was anything else that we missed that you wanted to share about all of this.
Yeah, no, I will always beat the plan for the transition drum. Like whether you, at some point, you will transition your business, be it on the open market to somebody you don't know, or to your family, or an employee, whatever it is, start early and understand what's involved with a business transition, everything from how to value your business, how to market your business. Just it's all like we'll say it again. It's about education and awareness so that you can plan and be deliberate about not only the current state of your business, but the future as well.
Thank you for saying that. We're here to help with the Center for Businesses in Transition. We have a big partnership across the 14 counties of Northern New York State, and we know folks in other neighboring areas as well if you need someone to point you in the right direction. All right, and with that, I think we're done here for today, and we really, really appreciate both of you being here this time again with us, and hope we'll see you both around.
Terrific. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Take care, everybody.
Okay, great. Bye-bye.